Today is Friday, March 31st. Can you even believe that we are already entering April? It seems like it was just Halloween. I mean, I can't believe how fast time is going. I know I say all the time, I can't believe it, but I'm not the only person saying that. It's not my imagination. Time is going really fast. It seems like I just planted all of my seedlings. I've up-potted my tomatoes. I'm getting ready to up-pot my peppers, and I'm going to take you along with me for that today. But before I head out to the greenhouse, I am going to prepare some food for our lunch because every day is fresh food. And today I have a little bit of a surprise lunch for Farmer John. He doesn't know it's coming yet, but I'm making a homemade pizza. So anyway, he can hear me, so I'm whispering. So I have some beautiful fresh broccoli here that I'm going to chop up and put aside, and I'll show you how I prepare all of that. And got to get myself together to get this done before lunchtime. It's post-treatment day. Yesterday I went to the chiropractor to go for my routine adjustments now. The doctor likes me to come in once a week, but when it's busy season, it's almost impossible for me to get into the office as frequently as I should. But it was a plan for me to go in yesterday. It was already an appointment that I had made, but I really didn't have a choice after the way I fell in the parking lot. So I'm happy to say I'm feeling so much better today. Thank you for those of you who are following along with us for wishing me well, asking me how I'm doing. But I'm a trooper. I hang in there. I get through this. It's been a long time since I've been dealing with it, but when incidents happen, my back was already out before I fell. So it was like I pulled my back out again, then fell, and then had to get up on my feet and go through life with all the demands of being a gardener, a stay-at-home wife, a bird keeper. There's a lot that goes on in a day. So when I say I don't have time for this, I really don't have time for this, to not feel well and be down with a bad back. But so today is slow because it's post-treatment. You get your body all pushed back into place and realigned. My hip flexor was out of alignment. I had a little sciatica going on, so he pushed everything back into place. He told me to go home and rest, which I was happy to come home yesterday. Got a shower, nice hot shower. I felt really good. Lay down, watched my new addiction on YouTube, which is watching surfing. I'm like, why am I watching surfing? I've never been a surfing fan. But all of a sudden, YouTube fed me these pages of 3 girls surfing in Hawaii, and I was mad impressed with their skills. And it wasn't like big wave surfing, but they were doing some really cool stuff on the surfboards. I found it super interesting, and that has led me down a rabbit hole of watching surfing. So right now we're watching Gerry Lopez, who was like the OG big wave surfer. And they're showing all of his old footage and how he created surfboards and all that. This is a total sidetrack of today's story, but if you're looking for something to watch and you're a YouTube watcher, you might want to check out some surfing channels. It sounds crazy, but it's totally therapeutic. And you become so involved with watching everybody ride these waves, get up on the waves, get up on their board. A lot of crashes, a lot of craziness, but the skill that goes into this and the meditation that is required to take a hit from a 60-foot wall of water, get tumbled underwater, and then come up and not have drowned or bashed your head into a rock. You know, you have to just allow it to happen. You have to go with the flow. And, you know, there are times in life where you really do have to learn to hold your breath, learn to roll with the waves, just go with it, stay mindful through the whole thing, learn to not panic. And maybe that's why I'm finding this surfing stuff so meditational right now, is because it's helping me to realize in the moments where I feel like I have to hold my breath, when I hurt my back, or when the day is too much and the garden I know is going to be very demanding soon, and I've got birds screaming for attention, and the things that you do every day just as a woman, really. You learn that I've got to roll with this, and I've got to learn how to hold my breath and not panic and get through it. So check it out. Anyway, if you're looking for something cool to watch, check out some surfing on YouTube. But right now I'm going to get to peeling my broccoli, chopping up some garlic, and getting that all sauteed for a delicious white pizza. And then I'm going to head out and pot some seedlings, and I'm going to take you along with me. So wow, I'm glad I was just talking about that though. Just talking, it's so nice to know that I have like this little group of people that I know I'm connecting with, and you know who you are, my super fans. The things that you start talking through, you realize why something is clicking. And I'm realizing why I really just stood here and said, oh my gosh, I just had a little bit of an epiphany about why I'm watching surfing. But as I do that, I was showing you that I was getting my broccoli ready for this white pizza. Did you know that if you simply peel the stalks of broccoli, that the stem is much more edible? Underneath the skin is very, very tender. It's very flavorful, and you waste a whole lot less of the broccoli. It's easier for your stomach to digest, which means you are less likely to have like discomfort. Some people find broccoli to just be one of those really gaseous foods that gives you a bad stomach ache, and just, some people say, I can't eat broccoli, it destroys my stomach. Well, this is like kind of like asparagus. If you peel off this outer stalk, a lot of the enzymes that cause all of that get eliminated, and before you even try to ingest it. So your stomach doesn't have to work as hard, and you can get all the benefits and the micronutrients from broccoli. As a superfood. This is something that you want to eat. So I'm going to use this, as I have been making for many years, to take the not healthiest meal in the world, which is pizza, but it's going to be 100% homemade. And I put a healthy spin on it, and I'm going to add some micronutrients in the broccoli. Garlic is good for your immune system, as well as some red pepper flakes, which is good for your metabolism. And I'm going to turn this meal into something with a little bit of a healthy twist. So I've just taken one small crown of broccoli, took some of that skin off like I was showing you, and I'm going to put it in a bowl, and I'm going to put just a basic lid over this with a very, very small amount of water on the bottom of the bowl. And I'm going to put it in the microwave, and I'm going to start with about 1.5 minutes, just to get it steamed up a little bit, so that when I put it on top of the pizza, it will be easier to cook. Otherwise, when you try to cook raw broccoli on a pizza, it tends to just get overdone, or it just stays hard, and it's not really, it doesn't cook down properly. So I give it a little bit of help in the microwave, but I always like to make sure that it's cooled and dried before I put it onto the pizza. Otherwise, it'll make the pizza very, very wet. So I'm gonna get this started, even though pizza won't be for a few hours still, but at least I'll have it started so that when I'm ready to assemble everything, I can just sprinkle this on top and get my cheese on there, and it will be all ready to roll. I'm also going to saute some fresh garlic in olive oil with red pepper flake and have that put aside. This is such a delicious pizza. And I realized also that I have a ton of spinach that actually came up from last autumn when I planted it. It was slow to germinate last year, but it's showing up now, and I have some big, beautiful leaves from Bloomsdale long-standing variety. There's some Gigante di Inverno out there. I think I have some Giant Noble and a few other varieties out there. So I'm going to go out and do the cut and come again method with that. And I'm just going to snap it off the stems, bring it in, and I'll add that on top of my white pizza when we get started. So let's walk over and see what's happening with these seedlings while I'm putting this in the microwave. Also, by the way, a quick tip to when you're steaming food like this, it's kind of like a steam blanch almost. I like to sprinkle it with a little bit of sea salt, and you know, everyone's idea of a little bit of salt is different than the other person's. When I tell you a little bit, I mean a little bit. And the reason that you want to put salt on is because it extracts the fluid in anything that you're cooking, and it makes it sweat. So by that, you want to sweat it out so that by the time you put it into your recipe, it's pretty much sweated out, and it's less likely to water down whatever it is that you're making. So, oh my goodness, you guys, it is a cloudy day out there today, and my seedlings are fighting for the attention of whatever sunlight is available. But look how big everything got. Can you even believe? I think I started these like, what, a month ago? Less than a month ago, and now all my tomato varieties, I have over 100 tomato seedlings. And look at my eggplant. Isn't this beautiful? Look how well it's coming along. I have to get ready to start moving this stuff out into the greenhouse on the right day. Now that I've learned how to regulate the temperatures out there a little bit, I'm feeling a little bit more optimistic about actually growing things in the greenhouse. So I'm really excited. These are my babies. But today, what I'm going to be up-potting is some of my peppers. And they still look a little bit tiny, but I wanted to show you underneath. You can see that the roots are starting to come out. So they will benefit now from a good up-potting, and then they'll really start to take off. Over here, I wanted to show you, look at my basil. Now, this basil is doing really, really good. Look at the beautiful colors of the purple opal and the lettuce leaf variety. This is all of the Genovese, the Emily, and the lime and cinnamon. But the one thing that's not doing well is that lime basil. Remember I showed you that it was late for the party? Well, it still kind of is. It germinated, but it's just stunted for some reason. And I would say that maybe it got a little crowded out, but everything else is doing just fine. So I'm going to be separating some of this and try to leave that in its cell and see if it will take off. But in the meantime, I'm going to germinate a new round of lime basil to make sure that I don't miss out on it in the garden this year. Here's some more tomato seedlings, as if I don't have enough. Got my beautiful Black Beauty here. That was a free seed from Baker Creek. And the Thornburns terracotta is doing really, really well. I'm happy to say that this method of making my own potting soil and seedling mix has put me in a position where I don't have any fungus gnats yet. So I'm really motivated by that, and I'm happy that I actually did my own soil, because normally by now I've got fungus gnats going on. And I won't say that I won't get fungus gnats, because most likely I will, but just knowing that I don't have them yet is a big relief. I started to germinate another fresh round of Notapeno and some shishitos, and they scared me for a few minutes because it took them like 8 days to come up, but they did come up. So I'm thinking, you guys, it's just not really worth it to rush the peppers along when you're trying to start them from seed. It's probably just better to wait for the temperatures to come up outside a little bit. And I try to get them started in February, so in my mind I've got bigger plants started, so that when it comes time to put them outside, I've got a good head start. And I always imagine how, Bonnie's in the big box stores put the started plants out and they're all nice and big, and I'm thinking, as home growers, we don't all have the opportunity and grow lights and the space and the shelving to get plants this big, but they catch up. And that's the beauty of starting seedlings is, you can get caught up in looking at a plant that's already partially grown in a store and spend $5 for it, or you can spend $2.50 for a pack of seeds and get 20 plants that will last you, the seeds will last you for a couple years, and just learn to give it some patience. And they will grow, because the seeds want to grow. And then when they get outside and once they get into the right growing conditions, they take off and do what they have to do. And you'll have summer peppers on time with no problem. So today we're going to go out and get some of these guys up potted, and I'll show you what's happening in the greenhouse. Aki, why are you screaming like that? Was that you too? What is going on? What's your name? What's your name? Tell me what's your name. You going to give kisses? Are you Mr. Handsome Face? How about you? Are you Mr. Handsome Face? Don't scream. Don't. That's right, your Lex. Your Lex. Alex. Can you say your name? Alex. Here's the boys. What's up, Mr. Buddy? He's being good? Mommy's going to be putting you back to finish up your breakfast. Yeah. Goog. You're such a handsome guy. He's Mr. Sexy Face. Are you Mr. Sexy Face? Okay, so this was perfect. You see how it's steaming? It was in the microwave for 1 minute and 30 seconds, and I kept the I just put a saucer over it to steam it in microwave safe bowls, and it steamed up perfectly. It brought out all of its beautiful color, and it's going to sit and sweat. I'll keep the lid off now because it's done to the texture that I want. You don't want broccoli to become like a dark army green because it loses all of its nutrients. When it changes color like that and it's starting to turn yellow, it's losing all of its chlorophyll, so you're losing your health benefits. So when you steam broccoli, you want to make sure that it's still a nice dark green color, and you'll be able to get your health benefits from it and enjoy all the flavor at the same time. So I've put this garlic into a small saucepan with some extra virgin olive oil, and again I'm going to use salt here. Not a lot. It's just enough to flavor the oil and get the garlic sweating. And I'm also going to add some red pepperoncino flake. This does make your stove a mess though, you guys. It does splatter. You want to watch your heat on this. You don't want it to be too hot because garlic does cook up rather quickly. So you just want to get this to a place where it is just starting to turn golden at the edges. We'll lower the heat a little bit. You can tell by the sound. And then we'll remove it from the heat and it will continue cooking. So it's important when you do this that you don't cook it completely because it still needs to, have time to sit in the hot oil, and then it'll be ready in a few minutes. All right. If you could just smell this right now, so you see how the edges are starting to turn a little bit golden. We're going to turn the heat off. See that? It's not done yet in the middle, but it will be in a few minutes. So now I'm going to put it aside and let it sit. Just realized that I forgot. I wanted to put my ketchup poppers on there, so I ran out and got these out of the freezer. I must have 20 bags of these little cherry tomatoes. So they'll defrost quickly though, and I'll just pop the skin off and I'll put them on at the last minute because, like I said, we don't want this to get watered down. So, oh, I forgot, I also have to take some provolone cheese out of the freezer, and I still have to make dough, so I better get started. I have to hope I'm actually going to make it out into the greenhouse today because this is taking up more time than I thought. I'm supposed to be out in the greenhouse with you guys by now, but instead I'm still making this recipe, which has just turned into a whole other production. So for this recipe, I'm making an easy homemade pizza dough. This is very, very simple. It's 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour. I'm going to proof yeast for this, which I'll show you separately. I like to add a teaspoon of salt to it, and a tablespoon of olive oil. And you don't have to let this rise. This is a super, super easy dough. I like to let it rise a little bit. I'll punch it down and then have it ready because this is going to be a deep dish pizza. So I'm gonna get my dough started, and then I'll show you what it looks like when I proof my yeast. Now, working with flour, some people think that it's like packing brown sugar into a measuring cup, and it's not. So that's why it's always recommended that you sift your flour. It loosens it up. Not only does it get out all of the clumps that could be in there, and it will let you know if your flour has potentially gone to weevils. The most important thing about sifting flour is that it loosens it up and makes it very, very aerated. Flour is, very commonly used by weight. Some people who are not experienced bakers, or even experienced bakers who want to make sure they have a very accurate recipe, will weigh their flour, which is a matter of tearing out, which means you want to weigh your cup or your vessel, whatever you're putting your flour in. You take it to 0, and then you add the required weight of flour into that cup. But because I'm an experienced baker at this point, I create my own recipes, I know what I'm doing. I'll just go into the big bag of flour, loosen it up quite a bit, and then fill my cup. And you don't smash it down. You're not packing it in like packed brown sugar. You want it to be nice and loose. And then I just take my finger, because this is my flour and we're the only ones eating it. So yes, I do use my finger. But some people will use a knife. If you're being considerate and you don't want to touch food that you're preparing for other people, then you can use other methods. But this is my flour, my hands are clean, so yes, I am using my finger. So again, this is taking 2.5 cups of flour. So I'll fill this 1 cup up twice, make sure it's nice and loose and sifted. And again, just taking off the excess. It's not, for me, it's not an exact thing. This pizza dough is very, very forgiving. And I will add the salt that I'm adding to the flour, not to the yeast. You never want your active yeast to touch salt together until your yeast is proofed, because salt can kill the yeast. Yeast is a living thing. It's very, very, very sensitive. So when you proof your yeast, you have to make sure that your temperature's not too high and that it's not touching salt, and you don't add your olive oil in until after it's proofed. But it does require sugar. So I will add probably a tablespoon of organic granulated sugar to this, because I'm trying to think of how big of a batch I'm making. I usually do a double batch of dough. So this is just going to be a single batch this time. So I'll use a tablespoon of granulated sugar to activate the yeast in the warm water. So you want your water to be lukewarm, like at around 105 degrees. And you can use a little thermometer for that, or you can just learn how many minutes it takes your microwave to get to that temperature. And normally you can test it with just your finger, because it should never be boiling. If you can't stick your finger into that water, it's too hot and it will kill your yeast. So like 105 degrees, nice little bit of warm water. We'll add the packet and the sugar and we'll let it proof, and I'll show you what it looks like when my yeast has proofed. So a teaspoon of salt. This is my favorite go-to salt. When you're at this portion of the recipe, you want to use fine grain salt, and then we're going to add that to the flour mixture, and I'm just going to mix it in. I'm going to let this sit aside as I start my yeast. So I like to just keep this on hand, some active yeast. You have some rapid rise yeast. And 1 packet is 2¼ teaspoons, and 1 packet really amounts to about a measuring tablespoon. So as you learn to work with this and you gain some experience, you'll learn that you can just use a packet for this will be enough dough for 1 pizza. So if you're going to let it rise overnight or a longer rising period, you can use less yeast. This method is to get this going quickly, so we're going to go ahead and use the entire pack. Okay, so this is how your yeast is going to look when you first add it into the water. And don't panic, it's going to take a few minutes. It could take up to 15 minutes. If it's beyond 15 minutes and you don't have a nice foam starting, you may have killed your yeast, so you have to start all over again. This does take a little bit of practice, so you have to be patient and kind with yourself. Like I said, yeast is a living thing. You want to make sure that it's not expired. It has to be alive. So we'll just sit and wait for this to proof, and you'll be able to tell, because the live culture will start to separate at the top of the water, and it will just start to sit in a little bit of a foam at the top, almost like if you had foamed your milk for a coffee, like a frothed foam. So we'll wait for this to rise 5 to 15 minutes, and then we'll come back when that's ready. So it's been a little bit more than 5 minutes, and you can see that beautiful foam on top. And this means that your yeast is alive. It has proofed, and you can go ahead and add this into your recipe. You'll know if your yeast has not proofed. It will just be kind of floating in little particles, and your water will still look very watery, and you'll know if you've never baked before. But this is actually proofing up very, very nicely. You can see that there's little air bubbles forming, and this is what makes your dough come to life. There are recipes for dough that do not require yeast, but because we're getting this one into the oven very quickly, while we're not waiting for the dough to rise, we're doing the yeast method. At some point, I'll make a dough for you that doesn't require yeast. So I was saying to this mix, I'm about to add my yeast into the flour and the salt that I put aside in this big bowl. And I'm going to add a tablespoon. I really, really like this single origin extra virgin organic olive oil that I buy at Costco. And yeah, it's the Kirkland brand. The Kirkland brand sources good materials usually. And this is one that I love in particular because it's olives that are sourced from a single source, a single area. When you're buying olives that are sourced from Tunisia, Greece, Italy, Spain, you're not getting the same quality of olives. So when you want to buy an organic extra virgin olive oil, look for a single source brand. And this one I like in particular. I'll also use this on our salad every day. So I like the Italian olives, but I'll also like the single origin California olive oil is also very good. So whatever they have in stock is what I'll buy as long as it's a good quality olive oil. Some of the other extra virgin olive oil like the Bertolli, if it's not a single source, I will use that for cooking, but not for my salad. But this one has the most flavor, and this will actually add flavor to the dough as it cooks. So you might want to check this one out. All right, you guys, look at that beautiful proof. So I'm going to go ahead and just gently fold that in. So right now the dough is just a little bit shaggy. Shaggy dough just means that it hasn't come together yet. So we're gonna get all this going into a little bit of a ball while it's still in the bowl, and then I'm going to transfer it onto a floured surface and I'm going to knead it for a few moments. So this dough is really actually pretty forgiving. And you know, some people are intimidated by kneading. And it's just a matter of, you know, folding it over and giving it a good push. Sometimes you learn that when your dough is too wet, you may need to add a little bit more flour. And it's always easier to have your dough too wet and add flour than it is to have added too much flour and then you're dealing with this dough that is too dense and it won't pop back up properly. So this actually worked out really, really well. This was 1 cup of water. I think I mentioned that. So you can see how it's beautiful and tender. And now, if you've ever bought a, go up here, come back to you. If you've ever bought a bag of dough from the store, because you know, you can buy the dough now, all pre-made in like the refrigerator section at like ShopRite or Wegmans. You just buy a bag of dough. It's usually frozen. But the thing that I've learned from buying that dough is it tends to have tough spots. So when you go to cook it, there's a part of the dough that is hard. And I used to use that for a long time. But since I've learned to make this very simple recipe of homemade dough, it's so easy. I'm just not intimidated by it anymore. And the more you work the dough, the more gluten you have going on, and you know, it becomes tougher. But this, look, this is just as beautiful as a dough that you would buy pre-made from wherever you might source your dough from. So this is actually turning out really, really well. That was a quick kneading. So you see, I just folded it over on itself a few times and got everything all incorporated so that you don't see any more flour. And it's very, very simple. So we'll go ahead and we'll let this rise for a few minutes as I get the rest of my ingredients ready. We're going to take a trip out into the garden and grab some fresh spinach. And I think Farmer John could possibly know what's going on by now as he hears me yapping away to you guys. He hasn't said anything, but I'm certain he can smell the garlic cooking. So while I'm waiting for this to rise, I put it in a clean bowl, and I coated this bowl with olive oil because the last thing that you want is for your dough to dry out while you're waiting. So you could cover this with plastic wrap. You could even cover it in a moist towel just to keep the dough nice and moist. Otherwise, it will get a skin to it and it will be difficult to work with. So because I don't like wasting plastic, I'll just take another bowl and I'll put it on top of it to create just like a little airtight dome. and it'll keep it nice and moist while I'm putting it aside and getting everything else ready. And we'll wait for this to rise for just a few minutes. Oh my goodness, it's nice out, but it's a little windy. So like I said, I'm heading out to get some spinach fresh from the garden. Some of the neighbors were complaining on our local community page that they could smell something in the air that smelled like manure. And I hadn't been out at that point, but oh my goodness. They're complaining from at least a half a mile away, and I can smell it now. It smells very, very strong. But you know what? I would rather smell manure in the air from a farm than I would to smell chemicals or pollution or anything else. So I'm not going to complain. Look, you guys, here's my spinach. I sowed this last year, and it's just coming up now. So I'm going to snap off some of this through the cut and come again method. This is that Bloomsdale Longstanding, so this is a very firm type of a spinach, but it'll go nicely. I'll wash it and I'll just slice it up and put it across the pizza before it's done. Oh wow, you guys, check this out. This is the giant noble spinach that I also planted in the fall at the same time as I planted all of my my turnips and my rutabagas. So look at this gorgeous spinach. So wow, what a blessing. So wow, this is perfect timing because my perennial Greek oregano has come back also. So I'm going to harvest some of this. I'm going to sprinkle this on top of my pizza, and I'm going to take some basil from the freezer from last year, and I'm going to add that to the top as well. So this is going to be a really yummy pizza. Yeah, so if you guys didn't know that you can grow perennial oregano, it comes back every year. Okay, so I'm back in the kitchen. I got my spinach, I got my oregano, I'm trying to eat my salad. Things are getting a little dicey. Now I have to assemble the pizza and get everything moving, but this is the pan that I'm using to make the deep dish pizza in. This is, I think, a Wilton pan that I bought maybe at like Joanne Fabrics or some Michael's, some place that has the baking products, but this, it's very large. It makes a perfect size deep dish pizza. So I'm going to go ahead and oil the bottom of this really well with the garlic oil that I made so that it doesn't stick and it'll be easy to come out. So I'll show you the pizza once I have the dough in here, and as I get everything started, I'll try to show you in phases, but this is where it gets difficult to actually film something like this. So here's my beautiful dough that has doubled in size, and I'm going to just go ahead and I'm going to punch this down and spread it out into the pan, and my hands are all covered with oil, so bear with me, guys. This is the kind of dough that you want to leave moist. We don't want to activate too much gluten in this because it becomes very unhealthy for your belly. So I have just taken it, I'm going to spread it out evenly through the pan. I'm going to let it rest for a moment, and my goodness. So look how easily that's spread out though. You see, you don't have to throw it up in the air and sing songs and pretend you're a pizzeria. So I'm just going to press it up against the sides of the pan, and again, I wipe this down with oil because this is going to continue to rise. Now, you can always tell when your gluten is activated properly because it will stretch. If dough is not ready to be worked with, it will just retract back in, and then it needs to rest. So this actually proofed up very, very nicely. It doesn't look like it's going to recede. You can see it kind of wants to pull away from the sides a little tiny bit as I work with it. But this is a really good sign that this is going to be a tender pizza, because the more you work with this dough, the tougher it can get. So I didn't add more flour for that purpose. So, all right, we're gonna let this sit for a second, and I'm gonna get the rest of my ingredients. Looks beautiful. So this garlic oil that I've made, I'm just going to put some of it onto one of these little loose basters, and I want to get some of this oil onto the dough because this prevents the dough from becoming too soggy. And I don't know if you noticed or not, but it did not really pull away from the sides. So this is a very, very good sign that this is going to be a beautiful dough. I'm going back onto it though because I want to make sure that it's sitting nice and even on the tray without being too thick in one spot and too thin in another, because it makes it very difficult to lift it out of the pan when it's done. So I'm going to get this ready now. I'm going to put my cheeses on, my broccoli. I have a 500-degree oven heating up. So let's get to building the pizza. So right now I'm starting this pizza after I've put my oil on the bottom of the dough with adding some slices of provolone cheese. And again, I bought this provolone cheese at Costco. And this will help to keep the dough from getting too soggy, because I had spoke earlier about some of these things that will be going on here are going to have a high water content. So we want to make sure that because this is a white pizza, that it doesn't get too soggy from the water content of the vegetables, and that I'll be able to, even more important, be able to get it out of the pan. Now I'm using fresh mozzarella cheese. Again, this is a product that has a very high water content. So we have to be careful with this, and I made sure that as I was letting this defrost that it wasn't too wet. If it was too wet, I was going to put it on some paper towels and let it absorb. But it sat out nicely at room temperature, and it's going to be well balanced. So I'm putting that down now. I'm going to do my broccoli and my tomatoes. Okay, sorry for the weird angle here, guys. Hi. I was not planning on making a pizza tutorial today, but I figured that since I was doing it, I may as well bring you guys along, because I talk all the time about keeping it real. So, all right. So I'll show you what you can see, how I'm laying the broccoli onto the pizza, and I'll show you what it looks like in a second. All right, so this is important for flavor, because the broccoli, you know, needs some flavor. We're just going to add a little bit of salt. Again, I'm not a big fan of adding too much salt onto food, but because, you know, there's no tomato sauce, there's just going to be some spinach here that I'm adding. The broccoli, more spinach will go on the top. I'm adding some fresh oregano that I just took from the garden. I'm adding more mozzarella cheese to the top, and I'll be adding some of the garlic oil, because this is the white garlic pizza. So this is going to taste really, really delicious. It will bubble up nicely. The flavor of the pre-cooked sauteed garlic on top of this is what really makes it, though. So I'll take this oil and just try to separate the garlic and put clumps of the garlic with the red pepper through the pizza. Now, if you don't like garlic like this, you don't have to use this kind of garlic, but we are enormous garlic fans, and we will taste garlic and smell garlic for days after this, but we don't care. We really, really just love the way it tastes. Okay, so we have the ketchup popper, cherry tomatoes, basil from the freezer, spinach, broccoli, garlic oil. This is going into the 500-degree oven. We're probably going to be in there for at least a half an hour. It feels like it's 300 years later, but I finally just pulled the pizza out of the deep dish, and I had to flip it on to the pizza stone so it finishes off, which is always the scary part. But I'm just going to open up the oven real quick and show you what it looks like as it's starting to bubble and brown. Oh my goodness, guys. Look at this beautiful pizza. It's getting ready to come out of the oven. All right. All right, you guys, we have homemade deep dish pizza that is steaming up the lens. It has broccoli, spinach, basil, and a beautiful deep dish crust. And now I just have to let it rest for a moment, and then I'm going to slice it up and feed it to Farmer John. Mr. Buddy, Farmer John are in the aviary here, waiting for pizza.
Oh, thank you. Oh my God, that's beautiful.
I'm certain it's going to be too hot for you to try to
Smash my face
get
into
started
it.
on, but I think I'm going to go get a piece for myself.
Oh my God, so beautiful.
Mr. Buddy, are you going to want to have pizza?
He loves pizza.
Yeah.
That's good.
This is so good, you guys. It is so good. Hey guys! Come on! Check it out, you guys. Here's some of the tulips that are coming up from the bags that we bought from Costco late last year. This one in particular, I'm in the way of the light, but it is, there we go. Really very beautiful. Wow. And there's all different colors that we're waiting to come up, so this should be interesting. Jeez Louise. Okay, so it's almost 4 o'clock, and I'm just coming out to the greenhouse now to finally start uppotting some of my peppers. I mean, no wonder I am obsessed with surfing. I'm realizing I just need to learn to really better go with the flow, maybe. I don't really know. I have so much to do in a day. I know everyone does. I get it. I'm no, you know. Go with the flow. I have to take a breath. I have been at it since 7:30 this morning. This is 7 days a week though. So, like I said, now it's 4 o'clock. I sat down for, I don't know, less than 5 minutes, long enough to take a couple small bites of the pizza that I stood there and made. Thank goodness, you know, John was working from home today and he was able to help with the birds' cage cleaning, which gets done every day. They're giant cages. They get cleaned from top to bottom every single day because I cook their food fresh every single day. You can't have, you know, fresh food in a cage like that. And plus, we don't let them live in their own feces. We just don't. We keep their cages very, very clean. I'll take care of them before I take care of myself, which seems to be the pattern of most days when it comes to everything. But anyway, it is much warmer out here than I thought it was going to be. It's still almost 100 degrees. It feels really good. My lupins seem to be surviving and loving the heat just fine. But I brought 1 pack of peppers out that I'm going to work on now. And you know, here we are, another Friday afternoon. It's supposed to rain tomorrow again. We're losing another day of the weekend. This time is critical because our backyard is still a construction zone. So if you see that going on, we don't like normally live like this. We're still constructing around the greenhouse. There's beds being built, raised beds, garden beds, walled beds, pathways, you name it. So we have a lot on our plate every day. So, but anyway, I'm going to put this down. I'm going to sit here and work on some peppers for a minute and see how far we can get. So maybe at some point I can actually take a shower and sit down because happy me, it's Friday. I still have spinach to stem. I clean spinach every Friday, so I have to sit down with my big bowl and 2 pounds of spinach to go through before I can actually kick my feet up and chill. So gosh, it's actually really warm out here. But before I do that, I have breaking news. I have to show you. I'm going to turn the camera around. Look, you guys, this is my grow bag. My carrots are germinating. I am so freaking excited. We've grown carrots plenty of times before, but this is the first time in the grow bag and inside of my greenhouse. So this is the rainbow carrot mix from M.I. Gardener. Oh, yay! Yay, it's a success. Look, you guys, I also have to get my my celery. This is the pink celery from Baker Creek. So I'm growing this. Oh, it's actually got roots coming out of the bottom. Here's the Utah tall. That looks like it's going to have roots. I got to soak the bottom of that. Oh my goodness, everything's growing. I'm so excited. So I'm only going to have time to pot up 1 tray, but I potted all sorts of peppers from seed that I harvested from peppers, like the Big Bertha, the California Golden Wonder, and some old giant Marconis.
and those 3 cells totally never germinated. And but it's okay, I'll just buy them from the farmers market. I don't mind buying things from the businesses around here in the farmers markets, which I'll bring you out with me when we go shopping soon. This Keystone Resistant, however, was from the same batch of seeds, and I took them right from or not from the same batch of seeds, from the same batch of plants that I bought from the farmer's market. So this grew happily, and I have several batches of Keystone Resistant. So if you buy Keystone Resistant bell peppers in a 4-pack or a 1-pack from the farmer's market or Bonnie's, Lowe's, wherever you're getting them from, know that the Keystone Resistant bell pepper is easy to harvest the seed and germinate the peppers. So we'll see what happens come springtime or come summertime when they actually go in the ground, if they'll actually produce. So I'm going to get these guys up potted, give them a little love, put a little bit of fertilizer in the bottom of the container, and we'll keep our fingers crossed. So it looks like there are 4 peppers I can pull from there. So I'm just going to take a few of these solo type cups that I bought. This is actually the Kirkland brand, and John put holes in the bottom for me. So I'm just going to take my Sharpie, and I'm back. I'm going to put mark on here with a Sharpie what it is that I'm putting in here, and I'll just write it on the side. You know, you can either use the little plant stakes for marking them, whatever they are, or you can just write it down on the cup so you know what you're planting, and then when it's time to plant it out, you'll either know what's in your area that you're planting. You know, it's really up to your style. There's no right way or wrong way. It's the way that you want to do it. You can do plant labels, or you can mark it on the cup. Either way, you'll have to keep a note of what you're planting where, if you're planting in the amount of quantities that we're planting in. So, but since I had already marked these as the old Marconi, like this one, for example, it says old Marconi, and I know that this didn't germinate. I'm going to be putting this out into the garden with the plant, so I'm just going to remark it as Keystone and put this in the cup so that when it comes time to plant it outside, I'll know that it's a Keystone Resistant pepper, since I have so many different varieties going into the ground. So something I've been doing this time with the seedlings, and I committed myself to being a better gardener this year, better at growing seedlings and healthier seedlings, and I'm going to do whatever I have to do to avoid any kind of disease this year. I mean, every year, we think we do a great job, but we're learning every single year, and that's something that I think it's important that we tell people when we try to teach the people who are coming up with us, who want to get to the pinnacle of being like the best gardener that we can be. We have to first admit to ourselves that we're always going to be learning. We're always going to be achieving. We're always going to be failing. We're always going to be learning a lesson. So this year, what I'm doing for us, and I'm not suggesting that this is the way to do it, I'm adding a little bit of fertilizer to my up pots with a little bit of a tomato and vegetable. Here's the brand that we're trying for the very first time this year. I've already added it to my up-potted tomatoes, and they grew like double the size within a couple of days. So it's an 8-5-1 mix, so you always want to know what your numbers are, and basically it'll tell you it's nitrogen, phosphate, potash, and calcium. So this is this is basically a mix of blood meal and bone meal. So it has a little bit of a fragrance, I'll say. And it's just little tiny pellets. So I'm going to add just 1 or 2 pellets per cup when I up pot everything. And then I water it in really good just to make sure that it's getting that boost of nutrients that it's going to need, and hopefully prevent any early developmental diseases that will prevent them from uptaking nutrients as they go into the ground. So I just have you perched on top of a stack of solo cups behind me. The day, I'm telling you. So here's my cup where I marked what I'm planting. You see I can fill it a little bit less than halfway with the potting soil that I mixed. And then I'm just going to take these pellets, and you can see just in that one, I had two, like a full-size pellet and two small ones. So if 4 pieces drops in there, don't panic. It's not going to hurt it, I realized. This is, you know, they can't make stuff that's going to kill your plants if you put a couple pellets in there, because they would go out of business. So this stuff is, you know, of course you're not going to put a whole giant spoonful in there. The big measurements are made when you do a big giant container like this. But I don't really recommend it that way, not for up potting. So now that I've mixed that in, I'm going to make sure that I have it mixed into the soil. That is the one thing though, because I don't really just want to put this in and have my tender seedlings resting up against fertilizer. That could potentially burn them. But these are not babies. They have a good root system. If they were newly, like, I wouldn't put this in for like the seed mix. I'm going to let the seed mix just be, you know, the soil that I mixed up with no fertilizer. So at this point, when you add them into the soil like this, the seedlings should be just fine. Oh, also, you notice I'm wearing gloves. I have to tell you guys, this is actually healed. My hands cracked. They cracked already because I'm terrible. I don't use gloves. They were cracked so bad, and my hands are like the texture of sandpaper, and then they become Velcro. I'm sticking to everything that I touch. So now I'm making sure that I acknowledge to myself that this soil is very, very drying. So I'm going to keep my hands protected, and I have some lotion that I'm using that I can show you later on that's helping me to get through all of this and helping my hands to heal. Here's also some earthworm castings, and I'm adding that this year. You know, everyone says it really does improve your soil, and this is, again, more nitrogen. This is really, really good for putting out your lettuce seedlings, because the lettuce needs nitrogen. So we're doing whatever we can. We're getting whatever organic products we can into the soil to make sure that we're getting a good start to the year. So here's my Keystone resistant peppers. I don't know if you can see that nice little root system they have on them. And these have been germinating in the back window all this time, growing. So I'm pretty happy to see, hopefully you can see all those nice roots. I'm going to separate these. I normally don't mess with up potting peppers. I usually just start them in bigger containers. But this year has been a new procedure. So they say that peppers don't really love their root system being messed with. So I only want to up pot them one time. So I'm going to make sure I fill these cups nice and high. And this will be it until it's time for them to go out into the garden beds. And it's only about a month away, a little bit more than a month for the peppers. So if the weather's warmer than we anticipate, as long as there's not going to be any temperatures under 50 degrees at night, that's when they're going to go outside into the garden. So I actually ended up getting 5 Keystone resistants out of that batch, just to realize that I had a couple more in the house that I have to up pot. So we're definitely, I'm pretty sure we're going to have some Keystone resistant peppers this year. Here's a quick tip I want to give to you guys who are growing in the Artistry greenhouse from Costco. Make sure you open your door on the days where it gets hot. If you open it up from the top latch up here, just to keep it wedged open, make sure you connect something from your handle to the inside of your door jamb here, so in case a wind comes, it doesn't take the door with it. So it pays just to be extra cautious in this greenhouse. So it quickly went from 105 degrees down to 85 degrees in just a few minutes, just by opening the door, even though the vent roof was open. So you guys, I actually had a bunch of other stuff that I wanted to go over with you today, but there's just so much going on. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start to end this video here. So thanks for spending the day with me. I hope you give this pizza a try. My battery's running low, and I'm afraid I'm going to die on you here. So anyway, thanks again, guys. I'll see you all in the next video.